Is Baldur's Gate 3 worth all the hype, or is it a dud? Make sure to watch to the end.
I cannot begin to tell you how happy I am to see Larian Studios succeed with the critical and commercial hit that is Baldur's Gate 3. The user score on Metacritic is maintaining its overwhelmingly positive score. If you go to Metacritic, while we haven't seen more critic reviews to give us a better picture for what the Metascore will be like, I'd be surprised.
Yeah, I am so happy for this studio, Larian Studios. This is so big. This is so big to have such a crazy success and a game that's not riddled with microtransactions. It's a good lean. It's a good step into maybe a better direction for AAA studios. We'll see.
Surprised if the game didn't maintain a high Metascore. And the Metacritic user score is still maintaining itself at a 9.3, this time from 446 ratings, whereas before the user score was at a 9.3 from 150 ratings. And then
9.3. Like, if you can get to 9.0 too with a Metacritic user rating, that's really good. But it's like it's a couple steps up from just a base 9.0. 9.3. It's a solidly like fantastic game, like across the board from user ratings. This is incredible for this game.
Beyond that, the game is selling gangbusters based on the peak concurrent players and the fact that it keeps going up every day.
Look at that trend. I mean, just look at that trend, right? There's a clear uptick there. And 700,000 players at the time of his recording, with a peak. That's the peak at that time of recording. And I've seen Twitter, screenshots since then. It's gotten up to like 800,000, and it's probably even higher today. Who knows?
Launch day, August 3rd, the peak was roughly at 470,000 players, and then that became 600,000 players on August 4th, yesterday, and then today, on August 5th, the game has peaked at over 700,000 players.
Let's just take a look at this. Yeah, so maybe not a ton of players at this very moment, 164,000, but I mean, that's still crazy for like a tactical RPG like this. The 24-hour peak, 665,000, but the all-time peak 2 days ago, 814,000 players. That's insane. This game is just selling like hotcakes, and it's going bananas.
This is massive. And keep in mind that the game isn't even out on PlayStation 5 yet, and the Xbox version is set to arrive sometime in 2024.
That's a great point. That is a fantastic point. This is just PC. This is just PC, and it's going to come out on consoles as well. This game's going to go nuts. It's absolutely going to go nuts.
The game isn't even out on consoles, and it's pulling numbers like these. Larian Studios is flying. Word is spreading about just how content-rich and feature-complete this game is. It's insane just how much content I've already discovered in what little of the map I've explored. Baldur's Gate 3 just feels like a video game in its purest form. No monetization, no exploitation, no artificial elements to try to keep you engaged or whatever. It just feels like the goal of the game was to maximize the fun and the immersion and the narrative and just bring out the best of Baldur's Gate and what makes Dungeons and Dragons special. Every bit of
Exactly. It really truly is just a video game in its truest form. You get a game for a price you paid, the game is complete, and it's good. And that's just it doesn't happen a lot now. I hate to say it, but it really doesn't. It's disappointing, but it's so uplifting and like almost awe-inspiring, which is sad in a way that this is happening now with this game. I'm just so happy to see it.
Of dialogue is well written, voiced, and all of it feels very cinematically presented. The gameplay, the way it's basically adapted.
Cinematically presented. That's a good point. I love that he said that. Every single conversation that you have, pretty much. I mean, there's a couple cases where there's voice-lined lines that don't go into a cutscene, but pretty much every single interaction that you have with any NPC and character in the game is like a cinematic sequence where it shows your characters walking up to each other in like a cool like videographer style, like almost like it's a movie or a TV show interaction, right? It's really cool, really immersive. It makes you really feel like you're in that conversation, like most RPGs where they try to do that kind of voice line stuff. But it's with every interaction almost. Like like to a degree that I haven't seen before. It's crazy.
The 5th edition D&D system 1-to-1 and how addictive the combat is. I mean, every aspect of this game just shines. And it looks fantastic to boot. I'm not saying that Baldur's Gate 3 is the only game that is massive and consumer-friendly and just rich in its content and substance, but there's just something about Baldur's Gate 3 that feels really special because it is a true RPG, the likes of which we haven't seen in a very long time.
Yeah, I completely get what he's saying here. Yeah, there's definitely other games that are fantastic and do things really well, just like Baldur's Gate 3. But just what he's saying is at this point in time, where every game has a battle pass pretty much, has some sort of pay to win, and I'm not saying every single game, but pretty much, right? So like the vast majority. There's some sort of battle pass, there's some sort of pay to win or loot box, some sort of like overwhelming RNG mechanic to get items that you could like, you know, whatever, pay to get automatically or something like that. And this game has none of that. You get a full and complete game for, you know, a pretty penny, of course, but you pay for a full game. It's all there. And like he said, it's content rich. There's so many cool systems and mechanics in this game. And the story is incredible. The combat is incredible. Like, all of it is just so fantastic. It's just you don't see it anymore.
At least not to this degree of scale and richness, complexity, and player agency, and like true role-playing, you know? It feels like going back to an old friend, an old genre whose potential has been taken to its current apex. I hope to do a more dedicated video on Baldur's Gate 3 as a video game to talk about all of its merits, but beyond that, for this video, I want to talk about just how based Larian Studios as a developer is. On their official website, they have this FAQ section where they present a number of questions that people might have, and among the ones that they decided to highlight is this one right here. Are there any...
Yes. I was going to mention this because I saw it in like a tweet as well that somebody had tweeted. So are there any in-game purchases? No, there are no in-game purchases. We believe in providing a complete and immersive gaming experience without the need for additional purchases. That's just like a big FU to all of the big games that are doing in-game purchases like left and right. That is so cool to see.
In-game purchases, and their response is just absolutely perfect. No, there are no in-game purchases in our game. We believe in providing a complete and immersive gaming experience without the need for additional purchases. Enjoy the game to its fullest without any additional costs or microtransactions.
Boom! Mic drop. Like, this is the best thing they could have done, right? They made a fantastic game, right? Absolutely fantastic, complete, feature-rich, like, awesome story, combat, everything. They, like, sold it for one price, right? Not with, you know, trickles of pricing along, or, you know, some sort of, like, I don't know, like, here's all these different levels to it, and you get bonus items and blah, blah, blah. There's one price. There's no microtransactions. It's just the biggest FU to other big AAA studios that are doing all of those things. No battle pass, no microtransactions, one price for a full and complete fun game. And it is amazing. I'm so happy with this game.
People have already taken notice of this statement, and it's gone viral. You can tell how much people are clamoring for these types of pure gaming experiences. How welcome these kinds of rare breed games are when they do come along on a AAA scale every once in a while. Yeah. On some level, it's kind of sad that seeing a statement like this brings me so much joy, because back in the good old days, this was just standard, right? Games were much more pure before corporate greed began to...
And honestly, you know, it's all up to us as gamers. It's all up to us as the buyers, right? The consumer. Like, we get to decide if these AAA studios do all this, the microtransaction crap and battle passes and all of that. We decide that. If we stop playing or buying their games completely, and we only play games like this that are, you know, full and complete for one price, they will stop doing it. They only started and kept doing it because people kept buying the games and playing them and spending money. Like, it's essentially our fault, you know? I mean, you can blame the studios that very first started this trend, for sure, partially, but the rest of the blame falls on us consumers for continuing to pay and buy into it.
Corrupt game design through the mandated implementation of monetization systems or artificial extension of gameplay that make games grindier so that the monetization systems can alleviate those artificially implemented insufferable elements. There's so much focus on live services with multiple types of premium currencies meant to confuse customers and meant to get them to spend as much money as possible so that they can reasonably obtain the rewards and items that they want or reasonably progress through the game. Even a lot of single-player games that come out in this day and age try to find some way to implement some form of microtransactions, with companies calling them time savers when the reality is that they just decided to take out features or content so that players would have to shell additional money on top of the $60 to $70 premium price point. And these are elements that do...
Imagine that, too. Just think about that for yourself, right? So he was talking about systems of grind, basically. Like, so think about what these developers are doing. They're intentionally designing a game that would probably be really fun, really enjoyable at its base level. And then they're designing essentially a system of grindiness that they layer on top of the fun game to make it less fun. And then they design these systems of microtransactions and pay-ins so that you can reduce the level of grind to get to the core fun game. And we're choosing to play these games as consumers. Like it's really ridiculous if you think about it like that.
Do take you out of the game, that make you remember that this is a product rather than a fully immersive experience. But then a game like Baldur's Gate 3 comes out to remind us just how good we had it before microtransactions were normalized. But at the same time, it's good to see that these kinds of studios still exist.
Yes.
The ones who prioritize really giving players the most value out of their $60 to $70 purchase as possible. And I can...
Yes, Larian Studios, you guys are the GOAT, man. You guys are the GOAT. That is crazy.
Commend them for putting this on their website and making an official statement about this, because on some level, they're low-key calling out the rest of the industry. Those big third-party publishers and companies who insist on compromises for the sake of profit.
It's really bold, too. And, man, there's studios out there that are pissed. They are pissed about this, right? Because it's right there on their FAQ on their website. Like right there. And it's also getting, like he said, it's going viral. People are just passing this around. And yeah, there's studios that are upset, right? They're trying to nickel and dime us for everything they can. And you can't blame, I mean, it's a business, right? They're trying to make money. But at the same time, yeah, they're pissed because they look bad now with Larian Studios just being like, nah, no microtransactions, and that's on purpose. That's intentional. You pay one price, and you get a full and complete game. Isn't that amazing? It's a rarity nowadays, isn't it? They're just really flipping the bird, man. It's crazy.
Who insist on corrupting game design and player experience because there are ways to use the interactive nature of video games to squeeze players and psychologically manipulate them. But a private and independent company like Larian Studios, who are self-published and who are their own bosses, don't have to adhere to those corporate agendas so long as the leader is as passionate about gaming as the community is. The leader of Larian Studios is Sven Vick, who is a gamer and a fan of fantasy and Dungeons and Dragons at heart. You can just see how much fun he's having with the creative process of this game.
Yeah, man. A true blood nerd, right? That's what we need. We need more true blue nerds as freaking bosses of these gaming companies. And even if there aren't, like Blizzard, for example, the most recent example of a horrible, well, we won't get into that for this video, but yeah, Blizzard, for example, if they see the money is there to make games that are full and complete without microtransactions, they will do it that way because that's where the money is. If people stop playing the heavily pay to win or like heavily monetized games and they only go for these games that are full and complete for one price tag, they will go back to doing that. They really will, because that's where the money is. So, you know, whatever. We'll see what happens, but this is a great example of it.
You don't see freaking Bobby Kotick doing stuff like this, do you?
Right.
A studio like Larian Studios, a publisher like Larian Studios, is not common at all in this day and age.
Right.
And so to see them succeed and to see them have this stance on in-game purchases and to see them just deliver such a pure video game and to see the audience and the people react accordingly by buying this game and enjoying it en masse,
right,
with concurrent players peaking higher and higher every day, it just warms my heart. And
mine too, man. Mine too. And man, I mean, it just really goes to show that if you really care about telling a good story and creating a really good experience, if you really are passionate about something, you can do it really well. And if you do something really well, like if you create a product that's really good, people will pay money for it and enjoy it and spend time on it, like above and beyond the competition. And I mean, this is just the prime example of that. Oh man, it's such a good case in point.
Gives me hope that, more development studios, up and comers or established ones, will follow this model and understand that this model is sorely missed and can be highly successful if you deliver. And what makes Larian Studios even more based is that its CEO has come out to say that it intends to stay private and independent. It intends to not be corrupted by corporations who may be looking to acquire Larian Studios. A few days ago on August...
These guys are just, they're so bold. They're like, yeah, we could sell out, or we could whatever. We could corporatize, but why? We have a great time doing it. We're making a ton of money. Who cares? We're going to keep being passionate and being the eyesore on all of the AAA studios, corner of their vision. Like, hey, we're over here showing that you can do things differently and be really successful. I think that's really admirable.
August 3rd, 2023, news outlet Bloomberg released an article titled "The Strange Story Behind Baldur's Gate 3, One of the Year's Biggest Releases." Reporter Jason Schreier spoke to Larian Chief Executive Officer, or CEO, Sven Vink. And among the topics that was brought up was a list of potential acquisitions that Microsoft and Xbox were trying to make. I believe this was information that came out as part of their court proceedings with the FTC.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who sniffs that much money off of a successful game maker like this, like Baldur's Gate 3 blowing up, they would be all over trying to buy him up, I'm sure. It makes sense.
In regards to the Activision Blizzard acquisition and whether that's anti-competitive or not, Microsoft has this internal mergers and acquisitions consideration list from back in 2021. And you can see that this list included some major players, including Bungie, FromSoft, CD Projekt, Hello Games, IO Interactive, Crytek. And among those listed...
Just as an aside, since he mentioned it, Microsoft is nuts. Microsoft is absolutely nuts. They just buy up everybody and just create the biggest gaming monopoly of all time. That's insane.
Was none other than Larian Studios, developers of Divinity and Baldur's Gate 3. Jason Schreier brought this up to Vink alongside speculation that an Xbox acquisition of Larian might still be in consideration, to which Vink straight up said, "I'm getting older, but I'm certainly not done yet. He has no plans to sell anytime soon."
That's awesome.
A new owner might pressure Larian to maximize profit while curtailing its creative choices, Vink said. And then this is a direct quote: "The strength of this company is that I'm very invested in the gameplay and I also make the ultimate decisions. We can..."
That's so cool. Yeah. So he can clearly see, and I mean, it's obvious to all of us, right? A big corporate company comes in, all they care about is the money, especially if they go like public and their shareholders and that sort of thing, like with, Activision Blizzard. It's really cool to see that he's sticking to his guns. Hey, I'm gonna hold on to this company for as long as I can, for as long as it makes sense to, and I'll make the ultimate decisions because I actually care about games. and there's a reason that this game is so successful, because the leader actually cares about games and making them good, and not making it all about money.
Do things in service of the games we're making. That's the thing about Vink. He's not just a businessman who's a CEO. He is a gamer who's a CEO. He values these franchises, these video games, as much as we do. So he puts that passion back into the games and doesn't want that to be corrupted by corporate greed, by the pursuit for profit, because for him, that's not the end goal. For him, the end goal is that creative fulfillment and giving players a really special experience through the interactive nature of video games, this very special medium that's so unique that he's also so passionate about. This is a CEO who's also a big fan of the projects that he's undertaking and understands the responsibility that he has to players. And so the top priority for him is to do these games justice, to make the game that is the dream game for him, and in turn the dream game for players, the game that he would want to play and experience and realize.
Yeah, if a developer can't put their own stamp of approval on a game, like if they wouldn't love and play that game for like, let's say hundreds of hours, right? They shouldn't be making the game. It's as plain and simple as that, right? If you can't boldly and honestly say like, hey, I absolutely love this game, like unironically, I would play it, 500, 1,000 hours. I would replay the story. I would play other characters in it because it's that good. If they can't say that, they shouldn't be making that game. And it's cool to see that these guys are so passionate. They're so into it, and they're making a game that even they would love themselves.
Eyes. And it's a beautiful thing. It's all too rare. And it pleases me to hear that Vink has no intentions to sell Larian Studios anytime soon.
Yeah,
because
same here.
It is my belief that a game like Baldur's Gate 3 would never be made under a more corporate environment. A game like Baldur's Gate 3 exists because it's a labor of love. It is a genuine passion project and not just a profit-driven project. Larian's
Yeah, I mean, going back to some of the features, right? Like all of the cinematic kind of voice acted like cutscene sequences where there's conversations happening, that would not happen, I don't think, to that degree at least, if it was a super corporate project. You can really tell that they cared about having that immersive experience and making it really, really fun and enjoyable. And yeah, I agree with him. I don't think that would happen in a super like corporatized game company.
Studios being a private and independent company and having a CEO who's essentially like the creative director of its projects and who is creatively invested in these projects, that affords a level of flexibility, a level of passion, and that passion being allowed to shine to its fullest degree that I feel like it's just not possible in another environment where there is a corporate overlord who oversees everything and who wants things done a certain way or by a certain time. Baldur's Gate 3 is a product of a studio that could really do whatever they wanted, push their ambitions, however far they could, was well managed, unless there's some behind-the-scenes stuff that I haven't heard about. But given that Baldur's Gate 3 came out the way it did, and given that Vink himself has come out and said that the reason he delayed the console versions was because, in part, he didn't want his developers, the people working under him, his employees, and his colleagues to crunch. Like, all of that suggests that...
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that particular point, and that's actually another feather in his hat, if you will. The fact that he obviously cares about his employees, this Vink guy, the leader of Larian Studios, that's crazy, because, there's some horror stories from other developers, and not necessarily just the ones in Japan, some here as well in the US, just horrible, horrible crunch times where people are just working crazy, crazy overtime, like mandatory overtime, things like that, just to bust out a game and all of its features. And usually it turns out horribly, like it's a bad, ugly launch because things were rushed. It's awesome to see that this head of this company, Larian Studios, really cared about his employees, didn't even want to rush the console releases just to have everything come out in tandem and have a bad release or something like that, or have, unhappy employees. He cared more about his employees. Like, let's just stretch it out. Let's put the console releases later just so we can have a nice, fluid PC release. Everybody's happy. Nobody's under way too much stress. That's a really big feather in this guy's hat, I swear.
Larian Studios is just a gem of a publisher, a company, and development team. Just every aspect of Baldur's Gate 3 was so well handled. From the early access, it is, I think, one of the best uses of early access. They allowed players to play a significant portion of the game, thereby allowing the community to play test elements and provide feedback that was there.
And build hype, right? Like, you get to see it step by step, and it's like, whoa, this is getting better and better. This is getting better and better. And this is just a small portion of the game. When we get a full game, this is going to be insane. Like, yeah, it's a huge hype builder. Playtesting and bug fixing and all that too. But man, yeah, they really did it right.
Then used to improve the game. Baldur's Gate 3 wasn't overmarketed. They didn't overpromise too much on anything, and they didn't output these fake, overly decorated trailers. They often just showed the game, its flaws and all. And then at the end of the day, they delivered a massive game full of substantial content with rich RPG systems, with a tabletop system fully intact. They didn't rush the console versions out. They didn't
Right.
pull a Cyberpunk where they shipped completely broken console
Yeah.
versions. Instead, they evaluated the situation.
That's a good recent example of Cyberpunk, man. That was really ugly. Oh, man. There were so many glitches and bugs when it first launched. It was ugly. It feels like he's wrapping up here, so I'm going to wrap up as well. I'm really glad that this company made this game. I'm glad that this company was formed, that they made their previous games and built up their experience, right? Divinity, Original Sin, those games. I'm really glad that this all came together and coalesced into Baldur's Gate 3. It is really just, it's like their magnum opus, right? I'm sure they could make better games in the future even. I really believe that. But as of right now, this is like their magnum opus. It's a really incredible game. Like, amazing combat, fantastic story, like really cool sub features that you just don't see tied in with this level and caliber of a game today. With no microtransactions, it's not heavily monetized. Like, everything is just right for the gamer and the consumer with this game. It's incredible. I've already put in like 30, 40 hours of it. I'm loving it. I would highly recommend to anybody else considering. And I'm just really impressed with this game. Baldur's Gate 3, fantastic. Well, what do you guys think? Is Baldur's Gate 3 pretty incredible or not? Let me know in the comments. Leave a like, a subscribe, and I'll see you next time.